All right, everyone, welcome back to the Kyle Anzalone Show. This is a breaking impromptu episode. I brought Connor Freeman, who was on the show earlier today, back on to join me. We are here in the first hour after Israel launched a preemptive attack on Iran. This is a major escalation that could very likely kick off one of the largest wars of our lifetime. And so, Connor, I'm very happy that you're here joining me to break this down because I'm I think you're going to do a fantastic job kind of as we wade through this and try to bring you what we know without speculating too much and break down some of what's behind this. So I guess just to start from the top, Connor, I thought a good way to do this was to go through an article of our colleague at antiwar.com, Dave DeCamp. Um, if we could get that up on the screen, Chris. So, what David explains is that the Israeli military has begun bombing Iran, an attack that could provoke a major catastrophic war in the region involving the U.S. Unconfirmed reports on social media say at least 15 airstrikes have hit the Iranian capital of Tehran, and videos of plumes of smoke rising from the city. And those videos are definitely occurring. So I would say at least sits at the minimum strikes in Tehran from what you could see from the videos. The IDF said that it launched dozens of airstrikes on Iran in an attack it claims is targeting the country's civilian nuclear program. It has dubbed the operation Nation of Lions. The Israeli military is also warning that Iran could launch a major counterattack against Israeli territory. And so, Connor, I just let's go ahead and get your early thoughts here on all this as it's developing.
Well, as we were discussing earlier, we expected that there could be an attack. The indications were all pointing in that direction. We thought that there might be a situation here where if Witkoff met with the foreign minister, not his counterpart, you can't rely on Rubio to do diplomacy. So Steve Witkoff, the president's envoy, was supposed to meet in Oman with Muscat mediating talks between him and the Iranian foreign minister Abbas Araghchi. They were going to do the sixth round of talks to try and get the U.S. back into, well, not even back into the JCPOA, which they illegally exited the last time Trump was president, a new nuclear deal. The major sticking point was over this idea of zero enrichment, no more enrichment of uranium on Iranian soil, even at the 3.67% purity level, which is needed for a civilian energy program. So there was a huge impasse here, and Israel for months has been threatening that they were going to attack Iran if they saw the United States and Iran headed toward a deal that was not to Netanyahu's liking. They have now done that. Their presumption is that the United States will be forced to come to their defense, just as they did in April and October of last year under President Biden, when, again, Iran was retaliating for Israeli attacks on Iranian soil, assassinations and bombing in Iran itself, and bombings of their consulate in Damascus, which under international law qualifies as Iranian territory. So when they've responded in the past with ballistic missiles and drones, the United States, Jordan, France, the UK have scrambled jets and activated air defenses, or the Americans have anyway, to knock these drones and missiles down. The U.S. is currently, according to Secretary of State Rubio, their official line is that the U.S. is not involved in these current attacks that are taking place. So far as we know, there's the IDF claims they've carried out dozens of strikes already in Iran, that they are bombing nuclear facilities, which can cause a catastrophic environmental it will have, the damage to the environment and the people of Iran is very unpredictable at this moment. We have to see what will happen, but this is extremely dangerous. They're bombing a civilian internationally safeguarded nuclear energy program. And this could easily drag in the United States and many other countries in the region. Iran has vowed that they will respond to an Israeli attack as if the U.S. is, attacking Iran itself for good reason. Although Washington is still claiming, at least now, that they're not involved. Although, as we talked earlier today, the assumption was, at least from officials on the inside speaking to CBS last night, was that the U.S., in the event of a situation like this, would provide probably a minimum of intelligence or midair refueling support. So as of now, we don't know that they're doing that. They
Yep.
claim they're not, but we're learning this stuff as it comes. We've seen some attacks on apartment buildings that look like targeted assassinations as well, and we do see hawks online already, like Lindsey Graham saying "Game on, pray."
And let's go ahead and bring up this Lindsey Graham tweet. We're all decent people, like, me and yourself are. This is not good. A lot of people are likely going to end up dead in the ensuing conflict kicked off by this preemptive, as the Israelis say, this is a preemptive attack, which means it's unprovoked, right? The ultimate way you're not supposed to do it, it's unprovoked. Israel is choosing to attack Iran, Connor. This is just absolutely terrifying. And again, all good people are terrified, while Lindsey Graham is obviously celebrating this and saying, pray for the aggressor, the country that attacked this other country. I mean, just how sick and disgusting is this? Now, Connor, one thing I did want to bring up here is that, on the early episodes of the Kyle Anselone show, I was very skeptical that Israel would attack Iran, and I really didn't think it was going to happen. And there are multiple reasons for this, but the main one was that this is going to put Iran on the path to obtaining a nuclear weapon. All intelligence assessments and military officials have said that while Israel could probably do some damage to Iran's program with a preemptive strike, and I mean, Connor, the strikes could go on for several more hours. We'll have to see how long Israel strikes, how many targets that they hit, but that ultimately Iran possesses the knowledge to build the technology to refine uranium, and so they could always construct a enrichment site that's more fortified, that's lower into the ground, and from there, once you can enrich the uranium, you could enrich it up to weapons grade, and then you can make a weapon. As Brad Pierce explained earlier this week on this show, remember, 80 years ago, we figured out how to build a nuclear weapon. And so, just over time, I'm sure it's become much easier and could be much quicker for Iran to build a nuclear weapon. And so, what is Israel going to do? Iran is a country of 80 million people. And while compared to Israel, maybe it's not the same level of military. It certainly is. I mean, not realistic to think that Israel is going to be able to completely obliterate Iran. Certainly not without significant American help. And how does this end for Israel? How do they ever put the ball down? How do they ever end this war against Iran now that they've started it? I think is a real concern. Additionally, look, Israel is occupying essentially 4 or 5 different countries now, depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, they've taken a large swath of southern Lebanon, a large swath of southern Syria. They're in working on annexing the West Bank. They're working on annexing and ethnic cleansing Gaza. And they were able to do all of this with minimal interference from the Islamic Republic. And I mean, to the extent that there is really any interference this year at all, Connor, it's all come from Ansar Allah, the Houthis in Yemen, who, of all the groups in the Middle East, are the least controlled, the least linked to Iran. In fact, it seems quite likely that when they're striking Israel, they're doing it completely outside of the purview or the directions of the Islamic Republic. And so for Israel to go now and pick a fight with Iran, it seems like something a suicidal state will do. And you wonder if maybe history will remember this moment. And I'm not a big fan of using World War II examples, but when Hitler turned on the Soviets and went to war with the Soviet Union and largely jeopardized his war movement. I mean, is that what Netanyahu is essentially doing here? Just biting off way too big of a piece to possibly chew, and Israel is going to choke on it and end up getting defeated in the long term here. When Iran has a nuclear weapon, when all the other states in the Middle East see that Israel is weak and start to gang up on Israel, this could become a very bad situation for Tel Aviv very quickly. Of course, they have nuclear weapons, so it gets very dangerous for everyone else extremely quickly as well. So, Connor, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is we were discussing before we went live that, you know, at least superficially right now, I would say this looks like it has all the makings of a forever war, because as you were saying, the paradox, or the paradox of all this really is that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. We the U.S. intelligence community is unanimous on that, as is the IAEA, they've been in the Non-Proliferation Treaty for over half a century. So what is actually happening here is Iran had built up a stockpile of hundreds of kilograms of uranium hexafluoride enriched to 60% purity. And the reason for that is because Israel bombed the Natanz facility, which is their main center for building centrifuges for their safeguarded civilian energy program, back in April of 2021. Previously, Iran had increased its uranium enrichment of uranium tetrafluoride to 20% after the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh at the end of Donald Trump's administration. Now, that's used for nuclear medicine to some degree. The 60% uranium hexafluoride is purely a negotiating tactic. And because of the sanctions being reimposed with the U.S. illegally exiting the deal 7 years ago, they cannot export their stockpile to have it reprocessed
And
into.
Connor, I don't want to interrupt you or derail you too much here. I do want to say though that Rudal, which is a Iraqi Kurdish outlet, is reporting that the Natanz facility was hit by Israel. So
Yes.
just want to put that out there. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So it's being bombed again. Now that means that stockpile could not be exported overseas to be reprocessed and turned into nuclear fuel for their energy program. And if you want proof that it was a good negotiating tactic, there were direct talks taking place, and otherwise that's why Israel is bombing Iran right now. As I agree with you, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Israel to do this. If we're being honest, Iran was the big boogeyman excuse for decades for Israel being lavished illegally with billions and billions and billions of American taxpayer dollars. And that's not even to talk about the costs of the wars that they lied us into or helped lie us into, like Iraq in 2003 and the lead up in 2002. But now they have to go to war. Once you start this process, there's going to be a response from Iran. They're going to be launching ballistic missiles likely at U.S. bases across the region, as they had vowed to do this week. All these claims from the White House about how our first priority is the safety of our troops and our military personnel. Well, this is just putting. I would not be surprised, frankly, if we see severe casualties before the end of the week, or perhaps even before the end of the night. This is all for Israel. I mean, I just said as soon as this started that, forget Israel first. This is Israel only. That's what this policy is. And, they absolutely did not have to do this. And now Iran is probably going to
Right.
race for a bomb because they have to now. There's no longer room for negotiations, it doesn't seem. And I don't really see any possibility for the U.S. to stay out of this. Because Iran, excuse me, again, Israel does not have the capability to eliminate Iran's nuclear program. They do not have the bunker buster bombs, and I think they're going to need mid-air refueling support
Yep.
at a minimum. So there's really no way they can do this, and I don't think they're going to be landing their planes in Gulf states in the midst of this war. That's going to
Maybe
have to be
Al
done.
Jolani will let Israel use some military bases. Now, Connor, I do want to remind the audience this is the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, explaining Iran's position on nuclear weapons. This is late March of 2025, just a few weeks ago. Chris, let's play this clip.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
I just like to point out, not to pick on Tulsi gratuitously here, but her saying that means a lot, especially in light of the fact that her whole raison d'etre when she was in Congress was opposing wars for Al Qaeda against their Shiite enemies, particularly in Syria. She did do an about face on that exact issue by supporting the bombing of Yemen, by bombing the Houthis, the
Yep.
chief enemies of Al Qaeda and ISIS in the Arabian Peninsula. So she is somebody that will lie and change and violate her allegedly fundamental principles in order to advance her career. So she's telling the truth there, and that is what Avril Haines said in also last year when she issued her threat assessment as the director of national intelligence.
Right.
They're
And
admitting, they're
CIA Director
conceding.
William Burns in, I
Exactly.
believe, January or December, just a few months ago. Chris, we do have, I believe, a tweet now from Aaron Mate. It's commenting, I guess Netanyahu has given some remarks, Connor, since we've and that's an interesting way to comment on the US if we really weren't involved in any way. Now, next up, I do want to go to this Ryan Grimm tweet because Connor, we have seen in the past that these kind of not attached between Israel and Iran, but yes, attached between Israel and Iran. We've had the strike and the destruction of the Iranian consulate building in Damascus. We've had retaliation on both sides. At the same time, that hasn't escalated, and a lot of Israeli sabotage, assassination style attacks have been carried out in Iran, and so we have Israeli society is bracing for a wider and a longer war, that this isn't just meant to be some blip, some quick back and forth in any way, a show or saber rattling, but something really big is going on. So, Connor, your thoughts on this?
Well, so the claim is from the IDF. If you look at there's an article on Jerusalem Post right now. I think it's just an article. I don't think it's their live news feed, but it could be something they're updating in real time. What the IDF is claiming is that this was essentially an existential situation that they were in. They claim that Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas were planning an attack on all fronts against Israel to destroy the state of Israel, including from, I guess they were going to attack, the claim is from Jordan and Egypt. Not clear how that's really possible. But that's what they're saying. So they're saying that they launched a preemptive attack to save the fate of their entire country, and that's why they're doing this. Now they're imposing what sounds like, as you're saying, martial law or a full scale lockdown. I mean, they're shutting down. I believe it said. Let me get the exact quote, because they said they're shutting down businesses, educational institutions. Basically, there's only. It sounds like a lockdown under the worst of COVID, where only what the government deems absolutely essential will be allowed to remain open. Here, let me see. There's actually. Um, I'll find it, but that is essentially what they're saying, that they're shutting down all quote unquote non-essential aspects of their society. So they are going in for the long haul. And again, they've been fighting a multi-front war this whole time. Dave DeCamp has a piece up on antiwar.com. It might be drowned out by the news right now on the page. It might already be gone. But the heritage minister, who's under Itmar Ben-Gvir's party, Jewish Power, he just gave a speech to one of their fascist youth groups, saying, what do we want? Gaza. What do we want? The West Bank. What do we want? Lebanon. What do we want? Syria. And so they are. I mean, this is a fascist society, and they're a rogue state. They're armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons. And quite frankly, Netanyahu making that statement about Trump in his speech right now, that is egging on Iran to respond on against US bases. I mean, when you say something like that, you're tying Trump and the American people and the American military to the current situation, the attacks on Iran.
Right.
So this is extremely dangerous. And if you were sitting in Tehran, how would you interpret that statement? Um,
Right. And Connor, just a couple other things that are being reported now by Israel's Channel 12 News. One is that Israeli security sources are saying that they took out high level Iranian scientists and members of their general staff, including chief of staff and senior nuclear scientists. And so we saw these that look to be strikes. Of course, it's always hard to tell early on, but we saw these pictures posted by the Al Quds, which is a outlet that would certainly not post things that were unnecessarily critical of Tehran. And they posted shots that looked like apartments, a certain floor of an apartment building was hit and destroyed. And so that certainly looks like a targeted assassination style attack. Very concerning. And then Channel 12 in Israel is also reporting that the operation in Iran is in coordination with the US. And so that doesn't necessarily say that the United States was involved in the attack or supported the attack, but certainly that the Americans knew about the attack, which Connor, I mean, that would almost be a bigger failure than actually supporting Israel in the attack, would be Israel carrying out this attack when they get hundreds or tens of billions of dollars from the United States every year and having no idea about it whatsoever. And again, Israel is saying they struck Iranian nuclear facilities. This is a major, major escalation, Connor.
Right, and according to the preliminary reporting, the U.S. warned partner nations in advance of the attack. They should have warned Tehran as well, frankly. And I'll just add what I'm seeing on CNN right now is Netanyahu is saying the operation will continue for quote many days. He says moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. The operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. He said Iran had a program to develop nuclear weapons and claimed it could produce a nuclear weapon if not stopped. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. We struck at the head of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missiles program. In defending ourselves, we also defend others. We defend our Arab neighbors. They too have suffered from Iran's campaign of chaos and carnage. Iran's government, CNN adds, has not yet commented on the strikes. It's important to note, despite all of Netanyahu's propaganda and the American propaganda and the propaganda we're suffocated with here, 3 out of 4 of the Abraham Accords states have normalized relations with Iran during the last few years. Saudi Arabia and Iran inked a landmark peace deal brokered by Beijing in March of 2023. They have a positive economic relationship. They have even conducted military drills together. And the Saudis sent Prince
Khalil bin
Khalil
Salman.
bin Salman in April to Tehran to meet with the foreign minister, President Masoud Pezeshkian, and the armed forces chief of staff to warn them that an attack from Israel was coming. Trump has, or could be coming. Trump has a limited patience for negotiation, so they should ink an agreement quickly.
And my initial interpretation of that, Connor, was that he was delivering essentially a threat, but maybe it really was meant to be a warning that this was like, hey, they are serious. They are prepared to go to war. Just want to mention that we have quite a bit of activity in the live chat. We really appreciate it. Keep the comments coming, guys. And if you are listening live, share this out, get this out there to a few more people. I'm sure the mainstream media is doing their own breaking news right now, where they're having Zionist guest on to give you the breakdown. down, where they're just repeating the same old lines, or making it sound like Iran had nuclear weapons and Israel just had no choice but to act. And so now the U.S. will have no choice but to go to war in defense of Iran. So help us out, help this channel, and let's try to debunk some of the propaganda before it takes hold tonight, Connor. Now, I did want to get your thoughts on this. I see this from the Times of Israel right now. They're saying that they expect the operation to take several days, that the Israeli military is preparing for heavy fire from Iran in response to the threat. And this is a statement: we're in the window of strategic opportunities. We have reached the point of no return, and there is no choice but to act now. And the Israeli military is saying that's coordinating with the United States. So we have, more information here that that's happening. I'm sure the Trump administration might try to play dumb a little bit after this, Connor, but the Israelis seem to be very open about that. They had American approval for this, it certainly seems, if not outright American support.
Right. And we have provided them since October 7th 90,000 tons of weapons and other military equipment, tens of billions of dollars. And we've subsidized, the American working class has been forced to subsidize 70% of Israel's entire war effort, not just in Gaza. So whatever they're dropping on Iran right now was paid for by us. That's what's happening. So even on that level, the American people are implicated in this catastrophic and misguided and reckless and just suicidal, as you say. It's like a mass murder suicide pact we have with the Israelis. Unfortunately, there's no hitting the brakes. And of course, the Democrats are not going to. I don't even want to imagine what the Democrats in the Senate are saying right now. I'm sure it probably isn't far off from Lindsey Graham's statement. Some of them are kicking themselves because they didn't post it first. And so we'll have to see. But
I would love to see John Fetterman and Chuck Schumer's response to this right now. I'm sure they're just as pro or more pro-Israel than even Lindsey Graham is at this point.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, Kyle, that there's we were discussing the MAGA base and their potential response to this. And whether or not the Republicans in Congress and in the Senate are more loyal to Netanyahu or Trump, I think we're going to find out very soon that they're more loyal to Netanyahu. But again, maybe Trump is too. I don't think Trump is loyal to his base. I think he's more loyal to Netanyahu. I think that's what we're seeing a demonstration. Because remember, even for this to happen at all means that Trump did not put any pressure on them to prevent it from happening. And that's what's really most dangerous about this. We're still running the same Biden playbook. Oh, we're really frustrated with what they're doing, but we're going to subsidize it every step of the way. And if anybody tries to harm a hair on Netanyahu's head, we will bomb them. And this is likely what's going to happen, unfortunately. The base needs to get out in the streets now. I'm sorry to say that. I know Republicans and libertarians don't like protests and these sorts of things. I don't necessarily myself either. But right now is the time to make your voice heard, and you can't do it by just complaining online. We need people in the streets, Christian, pro-life people, America firsters. You got to get out and do something. Go to your Capitol building tomorrow and raise hell, because this is very, very dangerous. They need to know.
Connor,
right,
we actually have Netanyahu's statement here that I'd like to play and for us to respond to. Chris, if we could get that loaded up.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. 80 years ago, the Jewish people were the victims of a Holocaust perpetrated by the Nazi regime. Today, the Jewish...
Oh, hey, Kyle, you're muted.
Connor, I want to stop it there just because that doesn't seem that imminent to me. He's saying that Iran could. It's not that Iran was on the brink of building a nuclear
Within days.
weapon. Right. And as you pointed out in the beginning, Netanyahu is saying, oh, Iran has collected enough enriched uranium to build 9 nuclear weapons. It's because the United States of America sanctioned Iran and prevents them from exporting enriched uranium. That they would sanction any country that buys Iran's enriched uranium. So Iran can't export their enriched uranium, which is why they have so much of it. And that Netanyahu is now using this as an excuse to attack Iran is just the worst and nastiest kind of line, where they not only create the crisis, but then they exploit it to escalate even more. Connor, your thoughts on what we saw so far?
Yeah, absolutely. This is what Tucker Carlson, to his credit, was saying last week when he knew Mark Levin was over at the White House lobbying for this exact policy. He said, if Iran was days away from a bomb or weeks away or months away or whatever, we would already be bombing them and at war with Iran. The fact that we're not proves that they aren't. And the fact is, you need 90% or more. Weapons grade uranium is 90% plus purity. What they have, there's no evidence Iran has enriched uranium beyond the 60% level. And as I said earlier, once again, that was a negotiating tactic. And the proof that it was working was the fact that we were just about to see the 6th round of talks in Oman directly between the US and Iran. This is why Netanyahu is doing this. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. No one wants this war. This is going to, I mean, wait till people see the oil prices tomorrow morning. This is going to devastate the American economy. Forget America first. That's gone. And we're talking about all these countries in the region. The Middle East has been destroyed and riven, or just riddled with sectarian war, genocide, all these horrible things the U.S. has been underwriting and backing for over 20 years now, nonstop, creating Al-Qaeda, moving Al-Qaeda in Iraq and Syria, or promoting Iraq and Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Al-Qaeda in Syria to overthrow Assad for over 10 years. The CIA spent billions of dollars on this, and the byproduct of it was the Islamic State Caliphate. I mean, think of what we've inflicted on this region. And now the whole place is going to go up in flames because of Netanyahu's this government is just completely out of control. And yes, he's absolutely lying. There was no reason for this at all. And the fact he has to say a year. We knew that even if they had whatever it is, it's over 600 kilograms, I believe, in the latest IAEA report, 600 kilograms of uranium hexafluoride at 60%. That it would take them, everybody knows, in order to weaponize it and build a delivery vehicle and then to test the bomb, that would take probably over a year. There was no reason to do this. And so, quite frankly, Kyle, I'm still not, I really don't know what the purpose of this is, except to make sure that Iran does not ink a deal with the United States. I mean, This is their greatest fear. Because there's no reason for us to be at odds with Iran. And in fact, Iran will go to war now. Those strikes that we saw in last year, after they bombed the consulate, after they assassinated in Damascus, after they assassinated Ismail Haniyeh and Hassan Nasrallah, Haniyeh was bombed in Iran. They specifically designed those retaliations to not escalate to all-out war. They were very restrained in their response. They cannot be now. They absolutely cannot be restrained. They have to go to war. And this is a country of 80, 90 million people. This is not Iraq at all. And if you're going to stop them from building a nuclear weapon, you're going to have to put troops on the ground. There's no other way of doing it. And Israel will not do that. So this is going to be America's war, and Netanyahu knows that. That's why it's Holocaust this and Holocaust that and nuclear bomb and all of these lies. And I mean, it's just, this is absolutely devastating. I really did not expect this to happen this fast, at least.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but
Connor, it does make one of the first things that I thought when I saw the strikes is, maybe Trump was closer to getting a deal done than I thought,
exactly.
because that seems like it may have been the only real event that would have pressured Netanyahu to act as quickly as he did. Now, Connor, I do want to mention this is very bleak news, but that we're covering here, but good news that we have over 1,000 people watching live on X alone. And so those are some pretty good numbers. You could help us boost those numbers by sharing the show. If you're enjoying the content, of course, don't just watch us live on X, but head on over to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the Kyle Lanslown Show, and share it out. Help us get a few more subscribers as we are recording live here tonight. So, Connor, I wanted to just mention, or actually, can we go back to the Netanyahu speech? Would it be possible to resume playing that, Chris?
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising of a nuclear holocaust perpetrated by the Iranian regime. Now, we struck at the heart of Iran's nuclear weaponization program. We targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz. We targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists working on the Iranian bomb. We also struck at the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program. Last year, Iran fired 300 ballistic missiles at Israel. Each of these missiles carries a ton of explosives and threatens the lives of hundreds of people. Soon, those missiles could carry a nuclear payload, threatening the lives not of hundreds, but of millions. Iran is gearing up to produce 10,000 of those ballistic missiles within 3 years. Now just imagine 10,000 tons of TNT landing on a country the size of New Jersey. This is an intolerable threat. It too must be stopped. Iran is now working on what it calls the new plan to destroy Israel. You see, the old plan failed. Iran and its proxies try to encircle Israel with a ring of fire.
So again, Connor, I think we see that this is all hypotheticals. This is some nightmare scenario down the line, which Iran has nuclear bombs and goes to war with Israel. But as we saw and as we explained earlier on the show, for years and years and years, we had heard that if Israel attacks Lebanon or Hezbollah and invades southern Lebanon, that Iran is going to act, that Iran is going to intervene. If Israel ethnically cleanses the strips, annexes the West Bank, Iran is going to attack, Iran is going to intervene. Iran didn't do those things. And Iran wasn't trying to build a nuclear weapon. Even after Israel carried out assassinations inside of Iran, blew up the Iranian consulate building, and so many other provocations, and invading so many neighboring countries, carrying out ethnic cleansings and genocides and annexing territory. Iran, I thought it was pretty clear that the Ayatollah was prioritizing the welfare of Iranians. That really what he cared about was the Iranian economy and making sure that the Iranian standard of living was marginally increasing. And not, they want to have influence in their near abroad, particularly in events, say, after the US creates the Islamic State and that takes a major amount of territory in Iraq and Syria. Well, then, they start going out and trading up the popular mobilization forces and these Shia militias in Iraq and Syria. But that's because ISIS is a threat to Tehran. ISIS is a threat to Iranians. And Iran didn't want to live next to a jihadist lunatic state. And so that's why they formed up these militias and got involved in neighboring countries. And so this is just a completely unprovoked attack. And as we've said a few times now on this program, Connor, that This attack is likely going to be what leads to this nightmare scenario where Iran does get nuclear weapons, where they do build a delivery system, and maybe then even attack Israel. Now, I want to go, and I think we mentioned this before on the show, but I think it's worth looking at, Connor. Marco Rubio's statement here. Let's put up this tweet. So what Rubio is saying is that tonight Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in the strikes against Iran, and our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. And Connor, if the top priority is protecting American forces in the region, what more is going to put them in jeopardy than an Israeli strike on Iran? Then giving Iran the feeling that they have to lash out at the Americans for this. Of course, Connor, imagine if Russia, if China had given Venezuela or Cuba $20 billion in military aid, and then Cuba attacked the United States of America, we would treat it as a Russian, as a Chinese attack. And that's why Iran, I think, is going to treat this, whether the U.S. was directly involved, whether they gave them intelligence, refueling, or just provided them with all the weapons that they need, that treat the Americans as a belligerent in this conflict now. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, as we discussed earlier, it's very important for everybody to remember. And as you were laying out the recent history, this you cannot fight Iran and its axis of resistance allies who are severely decimated at this point. As you pointed out, Hezbollah was neutralized effectively, and Iran didn't intervene to stop it. They did everything they could. They stood by and let the genocide in Gaza occur, the continued expansion in the West Bank, the bombing of Yemen by the U.S., Britain, Israel. They didn't do anything. And of course, there's no real way for these Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria to get to the West Bank through Jordan. They'll be bombed off the face of the earth. The best that they could do was launch these drone attacks at illegal American bases. Now, Kyle, the only thing I can think of, besides what we were saying earlier, that this was a last-ditch effort to stop a deal that was apparently closer than we could have imagined. Otherwise, I don't see why else they would do this, is that there is some truth to the story that Iran's intelligence minister announced last week, that they did obtain a large cache of documents and intelligence on on Israel's nuclear program, and that they were aware of the locations of their warheads and were preparing for an attack. That's the only way. Netanyahu won't say that, but that's the only logical explanation for why they thought this was an existential threat. It wouldn't be this idea that, oh, really, Hamas is going to invade and destroy Israel, and Hezbollah is going to, and Iran. That doesn't make sense. Through Egypt and Jordan, give me a break. And so it's not that, but it sounds like I have to imagine that it might not just be the fact that they wanted to destroy the diplomatic efforts, because they've done that before without ever having to bomb Iran, certainly not to this extent. They were able to do it with their lobby, and they were able to do it by just the pressure they were able to impose on Biden and
Connor,
Trump.
let's mention here, there was a lot of asymmetric warfare during the Biden administration.
Absolutely.
They always treat Israel as this, a normal state that acts appropriately in the Middle East, and that's why, we have to defend Israel. What were they doing? They were pirating ships. They were assassinating civilian nuclear scientists. They were carrying out drone strikes on civilian nuclear sites in Iran. These are highly provocative, acts that no other state would tolerate, and yet Iran did, because it was being bullied by the nuclear armed state in the Middle East. And so Israel has done so much to lead us down this path, just as you write in your beautiful article, I mean horrifying article, but very well written article with Scott Horton, about Netanyahu saying, we control the height of the flame, that it was Netanyahu's policy to back Gaza, to back Hamas in Gaza for years and years and years. And he ended up with this self-created catastrophe on his hand. Same thing here.
Yes, absolutely. There was a myriad of assassinations, including on high-level military officials throughout 2022 in Iran by the Mujahideen Khalq, which is a communist, uh, basically a communist cult. That carries out assassinations on behalf of the Israelis, particularly on nuclear scientists. They were killing nuclear scientists. They were killing engineers. The Israelis were drone striking military facilities, including drone factories and nuclear facilities, as you mentioned. And this is all while Biden was expanding the sanctions regime on Iran. He was expanding maximum pressure beyond what Trump had done. And he did not return to the JCPOA, which was inked under the Obama administration. This is why the Democrats are so cowardly and such enemies of civilization, because they helped create this crisis. Donald Trump we knew what Donald Trump's MO was vis-a-vis Israel and Iran. He would defer to Netanyahu. We thought we held out hope that something like this wouldn't happen, but now it has. And Biden could have easily returned to that deal. They could have done any number of things to prevent what happened on October 7th. I mean, hell, we under Biden, when Yair Lapid was prime minister, they murdered an American citizen journalist named Shireen Abu Akleh. They shot her in the face in the West Bank during a raid on the Jenin refugee camp. And a couple of months later, Biden went to Jerusalem and gave a big hug to Yair Lapid and told him, our relationship is bone deep. We're with Israel, no ifs, ands, or buts. And this is the fruits of these policies. I mean, Biden was exterminating the Palestinian people in front of the whole world with the Israelis. And it's only gotten worse under Trump. And now this was the inevitable results of this current policy. They took down Assad. They decimated Hezbollah. The Houthis are confined to Yemen because they're under blockade. So what was left? Just Iran. And again, I have to presume that this might have something to do with the fact that Iran was prepared in the event of an attack to respond and hit Israel's nuclear facilities. Now, they still could probably do that. So maybe that wasn't what Netanyahu calculated. Maybe Netanyahu didn't even believe that. And they really did just want to thwart any hope for diplomacy and just start this war. I'm still at a loss exactly for what the logic, however sadistic it is, behind starting this war, because Israel did not have to do this. Iran was their golden ticket. They did not need to do this. Iran is the justification for billions and billions and billions of dollars in American military and financial aid every year to the Israelis. Without Iran as the big boogeyman, Israel is there's not even an argument that that Israel is not the source of the worst instability in the region. Without Iran and all the lies about Iran, it would be so obvious even to the most hardened pro-Israel Republican in this country that Israel is the problem. So I don't know why they're doing this. It was their perfect excuse for everything they were doing up to this point. I'm quite frankly very eager to see how the MAGA base reacts to this, because this is the last thing that they wanted. There's no way that they want this war. They were promised by Donald Trump that he would not start World War III. And I don't think Russia and China are going to get involved directly at all. But I could see them getting involved at least to some degree, supporting Iran in its self-defense. Maybe they'll provide them some military aid. Maybe they'll provide them some intelligence. I don't know. But this is very, very dangerous, and they are going to go for a bomb now. So I apologize for going a little bit in circles here, but I'm really truly not comprehending yet what the point of this is.
Right. Well, that is one of the baffling things about this, Connor. And you know, your analysis is fantastic. And of course, when you're commenting on breaking news as we are, it's hard to know exactly what's happening, and also you know, not speculate too much. And I appreciate, I think you're doing a very good job of balancing there. I just want to say we're edging and very close to now 1,500 people watching the show live on X alone. Really great numbers tonight. So thank you, everybody who's already shared out the show, all of you that are watching. Of course, if you head on over to our YouTube channel and subscribe, you'll be able to get notifications and catch all the future episodes of the show. But if you could just hit the repost button, share it out now. I think it's important that there are people who are covering this live, right? Because CNN, Fox News, they're covering it live too. And there you're going to get the Israeli spin. You're going to get the propaganda. You're going to get the Hezbollah. Here, we're just trying to give you the straight facts, what we know, where we know it from, as we know it. Connor, some of the latest updates I'm seeing, this is per the Reuters wire, that the IRGC headquarters was among the Israeli targets. And Al Jazeera is reporting on the possibility that the IRGC chief was killed in the strike. So, major provocations. This is like the killing of General Qasem Soleimani all over again, except this time he was in downtown Tehran rather than in Baghdad.
Yeah. I mean, this is, and again, as we said, Iran is in a position now, they have been so restrained throughout this entire, we've been covering this together for about 5 years. Iran has been their economy was effectively destroyed. You had 50% of the population living below the poverty line. They were being strangled. I mean, people being deprived of basic medicines, dying of curable diseases in a country, in a civilization that has a rich history. They're a proud people, and they're being treated. They're not allowed to trade with the rest of the world. If Uncle Sam has anything to say about it, and the Israelis, and they wanted anything but going to war with the United States and with Israel. So now we're just, it is just horrendous that they're actually doing this. And they're hitting the nuclear sites, the ballistic missile sites, nuclear scientists, top military officials. This is a full assault on the Iranian nation.
Yeah.
Imagine what the U.S. would do right now if the shoe were on the other foot and somebody was doing this to us. I've seen in the chat so far people asking if nukes are going to be flying. I don't know. I certainly hope not. Israel has somewhere between 90 and 300 nuclear weapons, nuclear warheads that they can deploy at any moment. Iran has none. But if the U.S. was in a situation like this, you can bet that nukes would be flying. This is this is a life or death. I mean, Israel claims they said this was the end of the rope or a life and death situation, that they had to act. Well, they're putting Iran in that position right now for real.
So, Connor, I do want to wrap it up here. I feel like we've gotten through a lot of the stuff that we could cover without actually sitting down and reading quite a bit more, watching some videos. And obviously that's a little bit hard to do live. But I did just see that Senator Jack Reed called this a reckless escalation. And so this is just one senator, and probably not the most hardened Zionist on the Democratic side of the aisle, but still, he is a somewhat influential senator, especially when it comes to Democratic foreign policy, and that he came out strongly against this as a unnecessary escalation. Certainly seems like a step in the right direction. So everybody do subscribe to the channel, because we will be back with more coverage on this, likely tomorrow at the latest on Monday. Going to plenty of stuff. There's going to be plenty to break down. Once the sun rises, the dust clears, we're going to know more what the Iranian retaliation is. All that we will break down. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the best way that you could follow this show. And with that, Connor, I'll give you an opportunity to make any final statement or give your last thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, one of my biggest fears about what is the position that Israel and the United States have put themselves in is that, well, Israel is already an internationally a pariah state. They're a rogue state. Their leader is wanted for war crimes. There are arrest warrants out from the ICC. This is complete lawlessness. We have now gone from genocide to potentially I'm sorry. This is the reason why nobody can intervene to stop Israel from exterminating the Palestinians largely is because they are armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons. And so is the United States. And so we're in an extremely dangerous situation right now. Their public opinion polls across the world have been abysmal for Israel, including in the United States, where a majority of the American people now hold a unfavorable opinion of Israel, a negative opinion of Israel. Okay, so there was we get the term, there was a demographic crisis, whatever you want to call it. The American people, there is a very limited amount of time where they're going to be able to count on the support of the taxpayers here who have been bilked out of hundreds of billions of dollars over the years, over 300 billion or approximately 300 billion adjusted for inflation since the Nakba, since the founding of the state of Israel. Okay, so that's more that we've given more money to Israel than any country in the world in our history. So that was coming to an end. They are moving ahead on taking more and more of the West Bank. They're going to finish off. They bombed the last remaining fiber optic cables in Gaza and created at least a temporary information blackout. So who knows what they're going to be doing in Gaza and the West Bank amidst this larger war when people aren't going to be paying as much attention, understandably, to the poor Palestinians. But now we're in a situation where it's the American, literally what has to happen is America has to cut Israel off. We have to stop defending them at the UN Security Council. We have to immediately stop all military aid. And yes, apologize to the world, because the consequences of this for the American people are right now are unfathomable. Yep. And it is like I said, it's extremely dangerous. Please, everybody, stay safe. And as I said, if you know Trump supporters, or if you're Trump supporters yourselves, I'm begging you to organize, get in the streets, and do something about this. You got to make your voices heard. I don't know what it means to the Trump administration, given that he's he can't run for re-election despite any sort of fantasies he has about a third term. But it doesn't seem likely, especially now. Maybe if he gets reelected for a third term, we can go to war with China. But right now, we need to do everything we can. Libertarians, conservatives, you got to get out there. This is not an issue just for leftists and college kids who are bleeding hearts. Everybody should be a bleeding heart about this issue, especially for the Palestinians and now the poor Iranian people, but also for yourselves and for your family and your kids, because our entire future is going to be affected from this day forward with what Israel is doing. And it poses no benefit to us. It only serves to impoverish us and put us in severe danger indefinitely. And we're already bankrupt. The crisis here, this could be trillions of dollars, a forever war. This will be the end of the American empire, and perhaps even worse than that. So please get out there and do something right now. They have to know that conservatives and libertarians will not put up with this. This is we need a red line. The American people need to finally draw a red line. This has to be it. Otherwise, I don't even know what we can do.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for all of your analysis and your time tonight, Connor. Obviously, this was an impromptu stream, and maybe just to end this on a little bit of a lighter note, Connor, one of our first predictions was that certain senators on the Democrat side of the aisle would likely take this further than even Lindsey Graham. And I'm seeing John Fetterman's tweet now. Our commitment to Israel must be absolute, and I fully support this attack. Keep wiping out Iranian leadership and the nuclear personnel. And so, the guy with the least amount of brain cells in the Senate supports this the most. That probably tells you everything you need to know about this attack. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this live stream tonight. We had over 1,500 people watching live on Ets alone. Those are massive numbers for this show. If you can head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, not only is it going to help us crack through the algorithm, it's going to put this video in more people's feeds. Right now, as people are going out searching and looking for information on this, make sure that they are getting videos like this one and not being sent to Fox News and CNN, where they're just going to get the pro-Zionist propaganda. Everybody, again, Connor, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll be back with more episodes of the Kyle Lanzalone Show very soon.
Thank you, Kyle.